We acknowledge that our lack of content recently would have tested even the most patient of saints. But while we put the finishing touches to our latest odyssey, here's a best of Binky Gag Reel for you to enjoy.
Apart from the obvious environmental benefits of using a lot less energy, panel replacement becomes a whole lot easier when armed with the correct tool. Remember, if this goes mainstream, you saw it here first. I just can't understand why it won't go in.
Yeah, I mean, I can't work it out either. It should just slot straight in, surely.
With a project this complicated and all the fabrication work having to be done by hand, there's a lot of time spent like this.
It may look like we're sitting down with our feet up having a cup of tea, but what we're actually doing is thinking, while sitting down with our feet up having a cup of tea. It's a very important part of the process, and don't let anyone tell you any different.
Cardboard template. Second template, because you screwed the first one up.
Oh, come on, it's not that bad, mate.
The weather's not too bad today, but it's pretty bracing in here. Sorry.
Right, I know a lot of you think that I don't do much in this project and I never get my hands dirty. Well, here's the proof. I do get my hands dirty. They're bloody filthy at the moment. I'll have you know that I play a very important role in this project.
Get a kettle on!
Bloody hell.
He must have fell over to have gotten his hands that dirty. Not before wrecking a nearly new cutting disc. It's a good job he's a mate. People have gone in the book for a lot less.
The list of miscreants is long and extensive.
Anyway, moving on. We've managed to finish the rear negative suspension jig thingy.
That's quite a conundrum for even someone of Nick's ability. I don't think that just tea is going to be enough. This needs some proper thinking about. By Jove, I think he's got it.
Are we on? Don't know if I can do this. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm afraid we have to start episode 4 on a rather sombre note by announcing the passing of a good friend and valued member of the team here. An early death is always a tragedy, but it's made doubly difficult in this case by the fact it was only just out of guarantee. Kettle number 4, you will be missed. For about 10 minutes until we've got kettle number 5 up to speed. Business as usual then. Carry on.
So we've got a couple of choices.
I do love him, but sometimes he's a colossal trumpet. Project Binky is filmed in front of a live studio audience. Well, it's filmed in front of Ralph.
Now that I've got a... what have I got?
A lovely bunch of coconuts.
A lovely bunch of coconuts.
If he takes his shoes and socks off, Nick can count to 23.
All I need now then to finish this off is a quick rust repair on the dash rail. We're back to dealing with rust again. Still, it's nothing that another £500 worth of heritage panels won't sort.
Quit your moaning and get your wallet out. Someone call a paramedic, quick!
Okay, I think that's enough for this episode. We'll clean up, tidy up, have another brew, and we'll call it a day. What are we doing tonight, Nick?
Same thing we do every night, Rich. Try to take over the world.
Now you can see why Nick's having a nervous breakdown, and I've had a recurrence of my drinking problem.
Ordinarily, you probably wouldn't bother with a door this rotten, but in this case the skin had to come off anyway to finish the modifications, so it's not that much more work to fix it. Plus, of course, I'm keen to keep the car as original as possible. So we've now got 2 non-rusty door shells, 2 old skins waiting to go in the skip, and 2 new skins waiting to go on. You can make your own jokes up. I'll give you a minute. I'm not saying anything.
Hello, he's had a thought. I can tell by the constipated look on his face. I always worry when he has a thought and I'm not there. What the deuce is he up to? Oh right, yeah, of course, he's linishing a biscuit. Why wouldn't he be? Now he's marking out the biscuit, obviously. Okay, so he's drilling a McVitie's dark chocolate digestive biscuit. He's lost it, hasn't he? Yep, putting a bolt in it is entirely reasonable. This really does take the biscuit. Sorry.
What I've come up with then is this little lot. I'd love to show you how I got there, but I've eaten the prototype. I'm going to have to try it, but I don't want to get on my nice leather seat with my heavily soiled onesie on, so excuse me a second.
That's right, ladies. If you've ever wondered what Nick wears under his overalls, it's another pair of overalls. He's like a big onion. Well, he brings tears to my eyes frequently. We better just check to see how they feel.
We're going to have to get it right, or Mr. Flibble's going to be very cross. Pretty smart and really well hung. And I finished the exhaust. Now we could get around that by using stainless steel, but that's heavy and expensive. But it is shiny. So I suppose that brings us to the fairly obvious solution of aluminum. But instead, we're going to use aluminium, because that's what it's called. Well, that's that bit sorted, but before we go any further, I've got to have a haircut. Excuse me a second. Whew, that's better. Right, where were we?
So here's a visual representation of the issue we faced. The side repeater hole is stamped out 10mm too far back. Now we've got to fill the hole and start again. So after marking out the correct position, tracing round the hole to make a blanking plate and welding it in and finishing it off, the next step is to put the hole back in the correct position.
Ordinarily to do this, I'd probably drill as big a hole as I could get away with in the centre and then file the rest of the shape to suit. But last night I was on the Acme website looking for rockets, and I discovered that as well as their usual railway tunnels and inspection shafts, they now offer a bespoke hole service. Well, I was sceptical too, but I sent them the dimensions, and sure enough, they faxed me one over. This should make the job a lot easier, but it is a one-shot deal, so we have to make sure we get it in the right place first time. Well, that seems to have worked quite nicely, so we should just be able to fit the side repeater like that, and then we can retest fit the arch. Much better. You may well have noticed the enormous member that's been lurking around in some of the previous shots. No, not that one. This one. Well, that little bit of a job quickly escalated into a project all of its own. And to be honest, that's one of the reasons why thus far this build, we've tried to shy away from the sort of fabrication for the sake of it. That and of course, well, everything we've done prior to these, when the car's finished, you won't be able to see. As regards these cross members though, I'm not convinced about that.
Well, that's all very well, but you could have wire brushed them off at least. No, don't worry, I'll do it. There, that's much better.
So the first job apparently is for me to fabricate a way of anchoring the fuel lines to the body shell. Now, we're going to run the brake lines alongside them, so that's an added complication. But it's okay, he's done me a drawing. Brilliant.
Here we are, measuring the minimum level of fluid before the warning light comes on. It's all very technical, don't you know?
This gives me an idea. Ooh.
Proof positive that half a biscuit is the minimum amount of dunkage needed for optimal saturation. That wasn't easy to say. Coming up in episode 16, Nick buys himself a present. I test out my prototype cloaking device.
Yeah, that seems to work.
And we try out a new T-boy.
There you go, boys. Oh, thanks. Thanks, mate. That's great.
It's important to keep a list of achievable goals.
Flip front goes up. Flip front goes down. It's just genius.
Not bad.
Oh, I don't know. I was beginning to grow fond of the unkempt grey locks, bushy enough to hide a badger in. Still, the plasma cutter did a reasonable job.
As it is, that hole is going to be allowing the heater blower motor to draw air straight from the engine bay, which is no good at all. So what we need next is some sort of duct to get air from somewhere else. That's just not going to work.
Try it the other way round.
Well, that was always going to be a foul way of doing it. So we've dropped that lame duck of an idea and gone back to what we know best. Steel. I get entrusted with assembling the new office chairs. So well done to all of those who guessed correctly that the reason we put the screen in is because we're going to have a look at the wipers. Now they were okay 50 years ago, but for today's traffic, we need to make some improvements.
I really shouldn't do this on an unpainted car. It works!
This looks to be working much better than the auto wipers on my Alpha, which are brilliant unless it rains. During one of our high-powered business meetings, involving lots of tea and a little bit of forward planning, we decided we need to relocate it. But there's a twist. Yes, that's much better. Best do a thorough light check at the rear of the car too, though.
Sides. Left indicator. Right indicator. Hazards. Fogs. New brakes. Brakes. Brakes, 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 brakes. Reversing lights. Full house.
Well, it isn't really a surprise that everything still functions as it should. It is a bit of a relief. But more importantly, it's a very valuable piece of information for the installation. Once all of this is integrated into the car, if something doesn't work, we know for sure it's a problem of our own making and not something that was pre-existing. So the only question that remains is, how do we get this now fully tested but much more voluminous wiring loom into a Mini? Well, let's find out.
Our hard spiky thing warning indicator is in the way of the column switches, so it needs cutting down to size. I'm sure there's a gag in there somewhere. After the recent snow in Shropshire, we invent a new alpine racing event. Brilliant. Now I've got to wait a month to finish my wiring while Nick overcomplicates a solution for it.
No, that's easy enough.
Really?
Simples.
Oh, good. I had visions of him wanting to change the roof skin or something.
We're going to use some paddle wad. This end tank is the one that's going to feed the pump that's going to circulate water around the charge cooler system. I've got to modify this outlet anyway, so I think I'm going to take the opportunity to move it from up here to right down in the bottom corner. And this should make the whole setup much more efficient, and this greater depth of water should in theory give the impeller an easier time and therefore aid reliability, because more head always makes the pump last longer.
The blue flashing LED is a very good sign. Well, that's great. We've got power to the ECU and I'm not on fire. Along with switching for the rad fan and the fuel pump, because that's all we need. Nick gets a bad case of size envy. We call our Antipodean friends and they fly us over a special guest to lend us a hand. It'll be tempting to just hack the end off with the angle grinder, but to avoid the expense and arse of getting new ones made, I think a more considered approach is necessary here. Or we could, I suppose, hack the end off with the angle grinder.
I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, I'm not sure that solder's going to be strong enough.
Should be a nice easy job because helpfully it comes with its own bracket. But fear not, because the only place we can fit it out of the way is up here under the parcel shelf. The bracket needs a bracket.
Now, I did design more support into it, but I obviously fitted it, got carried away with something else and then forgot all about it, which almost never happens.
Yep, he's right. I can't recall a time where either of us did half a job and then moved on to something else. Ah, yes. Well, anyway. So to finish the job off, I need to make an aluminium trim panel that encloses and covers the inside of the boot lid. As usual, this starts off with a cardboard template.
No need. I bought one for 20 quid.
Well, that makes it easy.
Sometimes I think you deliberately make things more complicated than they need to be.
We'll start with the boot lid because it's not the front end, and actually it doesn't look too bad. We've just got a slightly bigger gap this side than this side.
Easily visible to the naked eye, these gaps need some fettling, but there's not much adjustment on the boot lid, so bring on the power tools. Right. Well, they certainly look pretty equal. We get gifted an automatic coffee maker in order to save some time and hurry up the build. We did a lot of research into places that do powder coating in Shropshire, and one name kept cropping up. Nick fails to get to grips with the new coffee machine.
Our 3S engine, whilst originally turbocharged, also responds very well to more conventional, naturally aspirated tuning.
So well, in fact, that, with the right selection of parts, our just north of 200 horsepower is easily attainable without the use of a small modern turbo. So, the decision has been made, we're just not going to fit one.
Woohoo! Woohoo indeed, but that's only half the job. We've got injectors and fuel rail, we've got sensors and coils. We've got to make a wiring loom before any of this will work. Oh, I see.
And where do you think we've got space for this? Touché.
Now I've got all these wires that need to go to the throttle, but nowhere to plug them into this carburetor. That's because carburetors have absolutely no business being on this engine.
It was a joke.
But that's not to say that carburetors don't have their place. Oh, I can see the comments now.
Are you sure about this?
Be the most accurate haircut you've ever had, mate.
No, I mean, is it safe?
As long as I set the Z-eye correctly, you'll be fine. No, don't move.
Not far from the Batcave, here's a guy that sprays cars for a living and has been doing so for a very long time. I've seen a lot of his work and it is always top notch. As you can imagine, an artisan with skills like that is very much in demand and does not come cheap. So I've come to see my mate Tony instead.
Many of the seams are in hard-to-reach places that require the flexibility of a contortionist to reach. And let me tell you, there's barely anything less comfortable than lying prostrate on top of Nick's brackets. And no, that's not a euphemism.
Well, I guess we just got to put it back together then.
We must do something to protect the lovely, shiny, expensive, fabulous new paint job.
That's not quite what I had in mind.
You're joking. It's a high-vis vest, mate. That's better than Batfink's wings.
Right, so that's the boot complete. I wonder what difference that's made to the sound of the panel when I knock it. Yes, that's much better. But there's absolutely no reason why now I can't put it in the car. Apparently there is a reason.
Now, I know what you're thinking, but I absolutely will not be pressured into some juvenile comment about a nice rack.
What I'm trying to say is that wiring isn't my bag. This is my bag, and it comes with me everywhere. So we'll start with the rear anti-roll bar. Obs.
No, not that one. So last season. It doesn't matter how much it costs or how long it takes, I've just got to sort it. Oh yeah.
At the end of the previous episode, we'd got as far as putting the engine in, but we left you on a bit of a cliffhanger, which I should probably apologise for. Last time we very carefully didn't promise anything, but in this episode I can guarantee 100% there's a 50-50 chance of hearing this thing run. And probably only a 10% chance of that.
Whoa, shut up, shut up. Bollocks. What? Bloody great leak.
Where?
Right, sort it, Tony.
Okay.
Yes!
I finally get time to take a break. Nick blows a seal.
It may look like Alcantara and feel like Alcantara, but what it actually is many freshwater otter skins on a carbotanium substrate. Or at least it sodding well should be, given how much it costs.
Don't worry, we're only joking. No otters were harmed in the making of the headlining, as we only had enough for the seats. Before we go any further, common sense dictates that it's a lot easier to bleed the clutch up before the radiators go on, especially as Nick's buggered off and I've got to do it on my own. We've taken some stick recently over our use of comparators, so to make the size of this brake disc totally obvious, here's a drill bit for scale.
We'll take the rears as a win, but being forced into having these spectacular lightweight billet racing split rims custom made just so we could fit bigger high-end discs and calipers is not quite the inexpensive bolt-on solution I was after. But I guess them's the brakes. Don't be like that. You knew that was coming at some point. Deep down, you knew. It's a little different on a permanent 4x4 like this, but for most cars dynamically, 3/4 to all of your retardation is managed by your front axle.
I suppose it is all subjective, but we've only got Nick's word that it was ever really a problem in the first place. I just assumed he was being a massive wench.
I f***ing knew you'd give me shit over this. Don't move.
Be sure to tune in next time for another exciting episode from the files of Project Binky. Nothing here. Sorry. We deliberately wasted your time.